redistricting. Jay brought up a really good point. Here's what happens. Democrats draw a map, Republicans draw a map, whoever is in majority at the time, that map passes, the minority party takes the majority party to court, and we spend money on lawyers to argue it out, where in fact it ends up in a federal court, and eventually a map is kicked out, and Rick Skidmore, remember Rick actually he was drawn out of his district. That happens. And he became the Assembly Sergeant at Arms after that. Anyway.
Better paid job.
Yeah, sure, substantially better paid job. He's retired now. But anyways, the point is, I think we should just cut to the chase. There are some legislators, and I think they got somewhat of an argument that the legislature shouldn't give up control over something it's supposed to do. But it's going to go to court no matter what. I think Democrats even took Democrats to court one year, if I remember right, way back when, because they couldn't decide on a map. Let's just have the federal judges draw it and get it over with. I just set up a three-panel federal judges. We'll save $8 million somewhere in there, and let them draw the maps. I think that's probably the way it should be done. Because what happens after this election cycle, if the Democrats maintain the governor's office and maintain both houses of the legislature, the Republicans will take the Democrats to court. If the House is flipped, the Democrats will take the Republicans to court. I mean, we're going to court. There's just no way around it. So I believe it was Spencer Black had a piece of legislation just to take the legislative process out of redistricting. And I don't have a problem with that. I simply don't. I think it takes away some of the taint that is in the process, that takes away some of the cynicism that people have when it comes to the way things are done down at the Capitol.
2000, I was actually part of a citizen suit to challenge the redistricting plan in Wisconsin on the basis of competitiveness, that it wasn't competitive enough. And the thing that in the end got to me is, sure, it did go to the judges, and the judges drew the maps. But you know what happened? And this goes back to one of my overall analysis of why we're in such trouble in Wisconsin, is that people and institutions don't play their proper role. The legislature has not shown enough control over the legislative leadership. The judges don't play the independent role on these political things that they should have. What happened in that case is the judge drew the plan, and then he called in the majority leader of the Republicans in the Assembly and the majority leader of the Democrats in the Senate, and he let them see that plan and make changes in that plan.
And by the way, there's Chuck Qualla and Scott Jones.
Yes. And this little citizen group that I was part of made a big fuss about that. But it just shows that, I agree with John. I think somebody has to do it separately, differently. But even, we got into part of this trouble because if the judges, each time we had gone, the legislature had gone to court, if the judges had said, I'm throwing out the legislative maps and I'm going to draw a clean map from day one. And then, if that had happened, I think we would have seen some real changes, because the tweaking that goes on in individual districts when that redistricting plan goes through has been enormous. So hopefully we will see some changes, and I think that the challenge that a citizens commission or whatever can do is to keep the drumbeat up, because the worst thing that can happen on these reform activities is there's nobody on the other side. It's the people with the power and the control that are dominating the system. Maybe as citizens we won't always win, but if we don't keep that pressure up to make it a more expansive, open process, then it can only get worse.
My question was related to redistricting, and it was commissions versus judges was essentially my question. Just which would be better? Does anybody have any thoughts?
Well, I'll just say that, the way I understand the way it works in Wisconsin, the judges, yes, it always does go to the court, but the judges, and as Gail mentioned, they don't really play the role they play is not one that's tremendously overexpansive. I mean, they take the plan that the legislature has drawn up and they tweak it and they adjust it, but they basically are reluctant to vastly change the design of the legislature. I think what we're talking about is really taking the process out of the hands of the legislature to a very real extent and putting it in the hands of experts, nonpartisan experts, who are drawing the district lines with an eye towards competitiveness, and that makes sense. So it's different. The judicial role right now is kind of a restraint role. It always goes to the court, that's true. But it's not as if they totally transform the legislative product. And what we're talking about is we need to vastly transform the product.
Go to a commission.
And a commission, we would hope, would do that. I mean, that would be the idea, is that a commission would do that.
Well, don't you get into a problem though, for example, I think that you're talking about a competitive district. We could ask a computer to draw the districts by population. It would do that. But you'd probably wind up with uncompetitive districts, wouldn't you? Because if you're saying, are you saying that you want the districts to have an equal number of Republicans and Democrats, for example?
They never want that.
I know what you're saying. It all depends on where the computer starts to draw. I mean, if the computer starts to draw based on population of the isthmus, you're going to have one pretty competitive, you'll have two
Right.
fairly competitive seats and one, well, you'll have Fred's seat. At the same time, if you take a look at the numbers, once you, in certain parts of the state, including my own Senate district, once you get below the presidential and the U.S. Senate and the gubernatorial numbers, Greene County is a classic example. Greene County is in my Senate district. It's a wonderful place. Top of the ticket, presidential race, U.S. Senate, and governor, it leans Democrat. State Senate, state assembly, county races, even though they're nonpartisan, it leans Republican. So it just all depends on what set of numbers you're taking a look at, first of all, and then secondly, where do you start to draw the map?
Yeah, it's a very complicated issue because you do have areas where you have concentration of one party or the other. You look at Milwaukee, you look at the west side of Madison, for example, and you could easily pack what they call pack all of a party into it and then maximize a different party. So you have to pay attention to what's actually going on. And I think, and certainly after, I haven't paid as much attention in the last couple of years, but when I was involved with this suit on the competitiveness thing, there were a number of very interesting articles that were written by scholars and legal people back around 2000 and that dealt with competitive measures. And they were solid, good, competitive measures. And they looked at a number of things, and they looked at election results on a whole basis. So you can come up, I think, with a measure of competitiveness that could be used to evaluate districts. And the idea would be to maximize the number where you had, between, where, you had close to half and half in the districts.
What do you,
I mean, but you can gerrymander, as we have, to create uncompetitive districts. You can gerrymander to create competitive.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You
Yeah.
wind up with a gerrymandered competitive district.
Yeah, right.
I could see Washington and Waukesha counties. How would you make those two competitive? They would have to.
Well, what you do is you run a spear into the north.
You have to run it straight into Milwaukee.
That's right, and that's not impossible.
Yeah,
It might look a little goofy.
Yeah.
Look at Texas.
No.
No, there's no reason to, right? For any reason.
I remember seeing a map of Milwaukee County in the suburbs where it looked like a pie. And everything had this little tiny piece going in Milwaukee, Waukesha going out in that. So you do have, it's not only competitiveness, even if you're drawing that, using that as one of your principal things, you're still going to have some districts that are more Republican and some districts that are more Democrat, because that's just the way it is. That's the way the population is formed. But you can maximize the number of competitive districts, and if you have that as a value, you can't do it. You're not going to get every single district competitive, but you can certainly maximize the number of them.